I am so grateful for the privilege of time at this year's General Assembly to address you, Unitarian Universalists. Thank you to the leadership of our UUA for your partnership and support. At UUSC, we are proud to carry the values and vision of our congregations and our association into the world through our work for human rights. Rooted, inspired, and ready, we join you. We are rooted in partnership and ready to respond. In the face of the long-standing and ongoing global crisis of human rights and the compounding effects of a global pandemic that exacerbate the impacts of systemic oppression, we are grateful for the relationships and network of long-standing grassroots partnerships that position us to respond now to urgent needs emerging in communities already impacted by human rights abuses. Day to day at UUSC, we strive to honor our 80-year history and meet our obligations to generations to come. Simply, our obligation, grounded in our affirmation of the inherent worth and dignity of every person, is to advance human rights and dismantle systems that oppress people. It is a bold vision, but at UUSC, we do not doubt for a minute that real change is possible. That's because we have the privilege of watching communities and movements create change every day. We have the joy of witnessing the creativity and courage of partners around the world who are dismantling systems of oppression and advancing human rights. And we have the privilege and joy to work with committed Unitarian Universalists and others who share our values in congregations, state action networks, and coalitions to build power for liberation and healing. All of this privilege, this joy, this change is possible because of you. Our partnerships, our programs, and our practices are designed for impact. Briefly, here are a few of the impacts from this last year. Through our partnerships, UUSC funded and facilitated Indigenous activist participation in global climate talks. UUSC was the first and main funder for an international youth conference focused on Rohingya human rights and community engagement. UUSC contributed to an interfaith amicus brief on the right to asylum for victims of domestic violence. The brief was cited in the court's ruling in favor of the right to asylum. At the request of the TPS Alliance, we created and led advocacy efforts for states in support of temporary protective status. With partners in coalition, we shut down the Homestead Detention Center. We established the Congregational Accompaniment Project for asylum seekers. As part of an international movement for accountability and justice, we secured sanctions from the United States Treasury Department in response to the genocide in Burma. We supported the creation of a complaint to the UN on conditions faced by indigenous communities in the United States due to climate change. We funded and facilitated a youth movement in Florida to help youth use their voices to shape the narrative of their recovery after Hurricane Michael. UUSC has led from within to change funding models in philanthropy. We funded and provided staffing for participatory research led by grassroots movements. We provided justice education and opportunities for advocacy. And we are always striving to dismantle white supremacy culture in our institution and in ourselves. I hope that paints a picture of the breadth of UUSC's reach and impact. Our impact, though, also depends on a depth that is reflective of the values that guide our work and our partnerships. For the last 4 years, UUSC has partnered with FEM in Nicaragua, a feminist organization with 25 years of experience working alongside rural women to build and spread a peasant feminism that allows women to reaffirm their ways of being within the context of multiple forms of structural violence. One form this resistance takes is the work FEM has done to build a systemic alternative to the extractive capitalist models of food production that displace rural families and promote violence against women and the earth. FEM has developed a sustainable, feminist, agroecological model that centers the sustainability of life in all its forms. This model is cooperative rather than individualistic, providing the community with resources and access to goods, not for personal enrichment, but for the enhancement of the common good. 25 years since its founding, FEM is now a 300-member-strong cooperative of women farmers. In the midst of recent government crackdowns, protests spread throughout the country, and the violent response of the state left 300 dead, over 2,000 injured, and hundreds arbitrarily arrested and prosecuted. In the midst of this, FEM reported to us that the political violence had led to severe food shortages, physical insecurity, isolation, and the deteriorating emotional well-being among the women. FEM asked us for support to supply 12 of their communities with basic medical supplies, to pay for fuel costs for emergency mobilizations, and to offset costs associated with health meetings in rural communities. In addition, because of the danger of travel, FEM hoped to temporarily relocate part of its staff. A few months after our response, FEM reported to us that all 12 communities received medical kits, staff were able to mobilize and support rural communities, and FEM's leadership was able to successfully relocate. You see what I mean about the privilege and the joy in supporting grassroots leadership and change? Our partners are advancing solutions and creating change. UUSC partner Living Hope Wheelchair Association Executive Director Pancho Agues puts the danger and opportunity of this moment in clear focus when he writes, "We are witnessing an event that exposes how widespread inequality makes our whole society vulnerable. Democracies and economies will be safe as those who are the most vulnerable within them. The reason to include and protect everyone is not rooted in the economic or the political. It is intertwined with how our shared dignity and humanity is actualized in our treatment of each other, particularly in times of crisis." Thank you to all who join UUSC in answering the call to support the work for justice.